So without further ado, we are on our way to the temple found in the deeps. Now the darn entrance is hidden though, so we're gonna have to figure out the trick to finding it. Carbon actually knows how, but being the forgetful old dude that he is, his instructions are written down so that he doesn't forget. Now don't lose this letter, guys, because if you do, then no one will know how to enter the temple, because this is the only letter he has. I presume anyways, unless he made a copy.
Dear self, I know you'll forget, so I'm leaving you instructions, to yourself nonetheless, to get to the ocean floor. Sincerely, yourself.
So it may be wise to tap the rail map icon here and mark the locations on your map. Actually, we'll have it shown along with the upcoming rabbits, so you can just watch my map to figure out where to go. Now before we enter the maze itself, there is a rabbit right here on the right, and the ocean realm rabbits are found inside floating barrels, which I suppose makes about as much sense as everything else in this game. So up ahead we have this little island here, and you'll find Ferris taking pictures, so you can stop here and get some quick tips from him. And he did say earlier that he was going to make his way over here to the ocean realm, but he's kind of quick. I mean, we just made these spirit tracks and he's already ahead of us. Like, how did he do that? We're driving on a train and he just like totally jogged out here from like the snow realm. I mean, dude. It's also kind of scary because he's like going on these train tracks that are kind of suspended over the water. They are fairly high up, not that that's too bad, but it's kind of in the middle of the ocean. You wouldn't exactly want to fall in. It actually kind of reminds me of how one time in real life I went camping with a friend of mine, and we had some train tracks going over a lake, and so we walked out alongside it with me on one side and my friend on the other, and we walked to the other side of the lake and then all the way back, and it was kind of scary because the gaps between all those wooden slats of wood going horizontally back and forth was actually pretty far apart. And they were huge and everything, but still, it was a long way down, and they were a little bit mossy, so we kind of wanted to race, but we decided that we wouldn't be very safe, and we didn't exactly want to go swimming. Anyway, point is that I don't see how Ferris could run all the way out here. That's kind of crazy. That's all I'm really getting at. So near the big island to the far southwest, there is another rabbit here on the left. Snag that real quick. Anyway, back to Ferris. He was giving you a clue about what to do with the information from Carbon's letter. We go to those parts that we marked on our map and find those sculptures, and then you can blow your whistle. So that sounds easy enough, and we'll be doing that here right now. Alright, so as we approach the first position that is marked on our map, you'll see that there is a fish on top of the pillar up there that's trying to eat a red orb. As you get close to it, you want to just face towards it and blow your whistle, and this will change the orb's color. Sweet. Now before we head onwards, you can turn left here real quick and snag a rabbit. Afterwards, you can then continue onward and take the northern route to get to the second orb, or you can go back up and go along the right side. Either way, it doesn't matter as long as you end up in the far north. So this rabbit right here is a little bit harder to find coming from this direction, but it's alongside the ocean temple itself. You want to face towards it, and as you come around this corner, you'll be able to reach it. And make sure you use the orb here in passing. I have a tendency to forget, and then I'm all confused when I access the temple later. I'm like, okay, so why do I only have 2 orbs? Oh, then I have to go all the way back. At this point, you can go straight to the final orb, otherwise you can swing wide and get the 2 remaining rabbits. Okay, so here we have a new enemy that we saw in the previous game, the pirate ships. Now they're kind of like a faster version of the Bulblins that we saw earlier in the forest realms that would shoot us with those bomb arrows, but anyway, they aren't too hard in general, but there is generally 3 of them at once, and they shoot pretty quickly. Hit their projectiles to avoid getting hurt yourself, and they take 2 hits to defeat, so just quickly tap on them and you should be able to take care of them pretty fast. So once you hit the final orb here at the dead end in the middle, this will unlock the entrance to the underwater rails that Carbon spoke of. Let's see how this works. Well, it looks like the spirit train was gracious enough to give Link a bubble so that he doesn't drown. Well, that's cool, very considerate. Good train, pat it on the head. You immediately encounter a new enemy called an Ocean Octorok. These squids will circle around the tracks before finally coming forward and inking you. This doesn't actually hurt you, it just covers your screen and makes it so you can't see, and you'll have to rub it away with your stylus. More importantly, though, this covers up your map, so you can't see where enemies are coming from, and so you can't avoid them by changing a route or anything. You can't do any of that stuff, so be sure to rub it off as soon as possible if this does happen. Also, when you kill these guys, they drop 20 rupees, so that's pretty sweet, so you're getting a little bit of cash as long as we're running through here. I really like the music down here. It's very interesting sounding and soothing. Kind of depressing that they have this completely different song for such a small portion of the game. We're just here very briefly, and then it's all over and everything. I kind of wish that we had this song for the entire ocean realm instead, and when you're underwater it just sounds hollow instead, underwater sounding. The Mario series does this all the time for all their water areas, but anyway, I don't think it's actually that big of a deal. It's just a matter of just making it's all MIDI format anyway, so that they're using for this, so it's just a simple matter of making it produce a different sound or using a different synthesizer or whatever the terminology is for that. Point being, I don't really think it would take up that much more memory for them to do that, or be that much more work for them to change it that way. But then I don't really make video games, so I don't really know for sure. But anyway, just sad that we don't have this song more often, I suppose. Okay, so once you start getting close to the temple, a new type of enemy will then appear called an armored train. Now, similar to the dark trains, they actually move the same speed you do in your fastest speed, so if you're trying to back away from them, going backwards and stuff, they'll catch up to you really quick. Also, you can't trick them by hiding in these little corners in the tracks. Like with the dark trains, you can kind of stop there, and you can turn around and stuff like that, and they'll totally miss you. But these ones, on the other hand, these armored trains, will actually spin around and come after you, and they do it so quickly that you probably can't avoid them. So you can't outsmart them that way. But I'll show you something else about that as well. So at first glance, it's pretty obvious that we can't just keep going. We're going to have to go the long way around. But there is a little trick you can do to skip all this and just enter the temple immediately. And I will show that here in a second. First of all, I'm going to show the intended puzzle that the developers were intending you to do. Just keep going full speed, and once you reach the first circle here, then a dark train will then appear at the temple entrance. At this point, there is two paths you can take. The first option is to take a right here and circle around to enter the temple from the left side, just going back the way we came. Now the other option, which I'm going to show in this particular recording, is to keep going straight, and then just take the only path available once you make it to that point, and then just keep going all the way to the temple and just go all the way there. It's pretty straightforward, and you shouldn't have any trouble. They actually made this kind of outrageously easy. They could have made this a little bit harder, but I think this was kind of training for later. Alrighty, before we move on, I will show that alternative method that I mentioned briefly earlier, and I think this is pretty sweet. Instead of traveling all the way around, since that takes a little while, if you're feeling a little daring, you can just wait here for that armored train. And I did mention earlier that this is basically a really bad idea, but I'll show you how you can pull this off. The unique thing about these guys is that they will turn around to intercept you, so you really don't want to mess with them, and you can't really trick them quite like you can the dark trains. Like, if you just stop here, you can kind of like keep going on rails and stuff like that, and the dark trains will just keep on going past you and you'll totally miss them. These armored trains are smarter than that, so you can't really trick them this way. So watch this. At these corners, what you can do is back up and start going on the rail leading to the temple, but quickly turn around and face the armored train and begin pummeling it with cannon shots. You can't actually break these guys down like you can the dark trains, but you will notice that it stops them in their tracks, so to speak, for just a brief moment each time you hit them. It's not really a lot, but it's enough to give you a slight advantage, and just enough speed so that you can get up to your fastest speed, so that you're not stuck in your slow speed. Anyway, so yeah, that's totally skipped that entire puzzle to the far north, and we just outsmarted a tougher train. Pretty cool, huh? So try this method if you like. It's a bit riskier, as you can see, but it's awesome. So well, guys, that's the end of this video. Join me for the next one, and I will show you how to tackle the temple. Later.